Okay, Russ, we are live on Get Set Up. I have made you host.
Okay, thank you.
You can make me co-host now. Thank you.
Good morning, Sylvia. Good morning, Shashila.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Nifia. So would you all do me a favor, and while we're waiting for the last people to join in, could you put in the chat where you're from? Get an idea where folks are from today.
Morning, Russ.
Good morning, Nifia. Bill, where in Pennsylvania are you from?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, well, keep going. Where in Pittsburgh do you live? I'm originally from Pittsburgh.
Oh, East End.
Okay, how east? Like East Liberty?
Oh no, Wilkinsburg.
Okay, Wilkinsburg. Yep, I got it. Yep. My wife is a genuine native. She was born in Pittsburgh at the Women's Hospital. It has a different name now, but
Maybe McGee Women's Hospital.
yes, that's it. McGee Women's Hospital. And I moved there when I was 6 months old.
Mhm.
We both lived in the South Hills until we both moved. But we both love Pittsburgh. We lived in Western Pennsylvania again twice more after we left Pittsburgh
Mhm.
as children. I lived in Johnstown, Scottdale, and Farmington County. Fayette County, Farmington, and have Western Pennsylvania deep in my bones, for better for worse. I love Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. My wife and I discuss. We live in the Shenandoah Valley now, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. But I've often said if I lived in a city, I'd live in Pittsburgh. She used to say that now she likes Richmond a lot, but Pittsburgh has great character. It is a little tough in the winter. It's the only thing I will say. Some parts of the city aren't the prettiest in the winter, but the rest of the year, I love the city. And last year, I biked from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. on the Great Allegheny Passage and the C&O Towpath. And that is a fabulous ride. I'm quite pleased to say that Pittsburgh has become a fairly bike-friendly city. I say fairly because
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking in to get a bike. I actually took a class on e-bikes a couple of days ago, but you know, it was never really made for what they're trying to do, in my opinion. I mean, it's just, yeah, there are bike lanes and everything. It's just a little nerve-wracking to if somebody's driving 50 miles an hour, like 2 or 3 feet away from you.
yeah, that's nerve-wracking.
That I don't know. I don't know if I can get used to that.
When I used to drive in Pittsburgh, I would always say Pittsburgh wasn't made for driving. Though one of the fun things about Pittsburgh, and we're just killing a few minutes here, everybody, while we all gather together. One of the fun things about Pittsburgh is that because the roads twist and wind and go up and down around hills and through hills and all over the place, there's all sorts of little shortcuts and hidden ways of getting from one place to another that if you live there, you know, and if you don't, you don't know. And I used to know some of those ways of like sneak in and out of Oakland along, I can't remember the name of the road, but you come up around through Panther Hollow. It's like, who would know you could get up there that way anyway?
Oh yeah, you go through Frick Park. Yeah, I do that a lot when I walk. I kind of stay through the park trails and then come out on the main roads. Yeah, you know.
Someday I may do a travel class on Pittsburgh. I do travel classes on destinations in the U.S. as well as overseas. And Pittsburgh has some unique things like the inclines and the view from Grandview. When you get up on Mount Washington and you can see the city, there are very few cities in America that have a view like that. So welcome, everybody. Good to have you. People have been putting in the chat as they joined this morning where they're from. So I was just discussing with Bill that he's from Pittsburgh. And Sylvia is from sunny and warm Las Vegas. Well, I bet it's more sunny and warm indeed. I see that the West is in a heat wave. Sushila is from Atlanta. Kathy is from Minnesota. Nelda's from hot Texas. I can believe it. And Pat is back again from Poolsboro, Washington. We had this discussion yesterday about Poolsboro. So Pat's up early, maybe. Not early for me to be up at 8:10, but maybe for people on the West Coast. And Nelda, where are you from?
I'm from San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, San Antonio. I've been to San Antonio. You have a river walk there that's unique.
That's very beautiful.
You have to kind of go way down, about 2 stories down. There's this river. Well, it's an old, I guess, sort of a canyon that the city's built around. And then you can't just tell it's there. One of the interesting things about canyons in Texas is they're small and you don't see them until you're there. Years ago, we're talking over 45 years ago almost, I drove from Southern California to Indiana and stayed overnight in a Palo Duro Canyon, which is in the northern panhandle of Texas. And we really didn't see it till we were almost on it. I mean, it was like just flat. Whoops, there's the canyon.
Yeah, they call it the Little Grand Canyon.
The Little Grand Canyon. It was a beautiful place. I remember just gorgeous canyon walls. Well, welcome everybody. Glad to have you all here for the class on how to use your mobile phone while traveling. And I'm glad to welcome back many familiar faces, but also love to have new folks here. And anybody who has joined the last minute or two, if you haven't had a chance to put in the chat where you're from, that's helpful. I always like to know where learners are coming from. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. I'm going to do a couple screen shares today. I'm going to start with a little presentation of some material, just so we all get an idea of what I'm going to be talking about and using your mobile phone. But I'm also just going to get right into using it. I'll do some demonstrations. So this is how to use your mobile phone while traveling. If you thought you were in another class, I'm sorry. But this is one that came at the request of learners because I use my mobile phone for a lot of stuff when I travel. And you'll see, I am Russ Eanes, your guide from Harrisonburg, Virginia, the lovely Shenandoah Valley. And I did a class last week on the Shenandoah Valley. There's a lot of things that might surprise you about the Shenandoah, which are wonderful. And I'm going to repeat that class tomorrow evening. It's Thursday afternoon at 4:30. So if you want to find out more about the Shenandoah Valley, one of our learners that was in that class came to the Shenandoah Valley last weekend, coincidentally, and he was really glad for the class. He learned all sorts of new stuff. I am a writer, a walker, and a cyclist. Used to be a book publisher, and I'm now a full-time guide with Get Set Up. Love all the energy I get from working with the older learners. In our classes, we learn from each other, and ideally we have our cameras on so we can see each other. Thank you, those of you who have got your cameras on. You can request a recording after this class. You email help@getsetup.io. And we are live streaming today. So if anyone is joining by live stream, of course, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class. Then you get to be here live and ask questions. Lastly, Get Set Up is not paid to promote any specific products. I'm going to be showing you my iPhone today, but we're not promoting Apple in any way, shape, or form, or any of the apps I show you. This is just a quick picture just to lighten things up. This is me with my youngest grandson. I was up in Maine with him a little over a week ago, my first flight in over a year and a half. And it was different going through the airport. So if anybody is thinking about travel, air flying is different now. I had to wear a mask the entire time from when I walked in the airport till I walked out the other end and on the airport. So just be prepared for that. Anyway, we had a good time in Maine. Our agenda today is we're going to learn all the capabilities of a mobile phone to help you plan and track or use or whatever, communicate while you're traveling. And I'm going to look briefly at how to use a mobile phone when out of the country, some specific advantages, but also particular things you need to know about your mobile phone when you're out of the country. And I always start with this little kind of caveat or warning. Now, this is the city of Spoleto. Detlef, you were asking me yesterday about Spoleto. This is Spoleto from the Rocca, or the castle above the city. Absolutely a beautiful town. I love it. There's a lot going on in there. An hour later, I'd walk down into the town, came into the Central Plaza, and came across some people all on their phones or devices. One of the most beautiful cities in the world, and people were distracted by their phones. Hey, it happens to all of us. I'm not being critical, but even though I'm going to show you how to use your mobile phone today, just remember to enjoy the trip and not your phone while you're traveling. All of this material that I'm going over today will come to you in notes at the end of your class. So relax if you feel you can't keep up with anything I'm saying. I will show you all the apps, but you'll also get lists of them in your notes. So relax and enjoy the class. But I'm going to talk about the various capabilities, and they're kind of grouped together for a mobile phone while you're traveling. The first one is your mobile phone is a phone, and you can use it while you're traveling for phone calls. You can text, you can get email, you can get WhatsApp. And if you don't know what WhatsApp is, it's this app right here in the middle. It is an app that is least years ago was really favored by Europeans because they could do messaging just like your text app, but it would be something you'd use in a Wi-Fi environment, and it was free. WhatsApp does a lot more than that. It also does phone calls, and you can do voice memos, and well, a lot of apps do the same thing now. That you can do the same thing through Facebook Messenger, which you can see I have next door on my phone. But there is a class we do in WhatsApp. So if you're interested in WhatsApp, I can show you that. One nice thing about it is I do family. I have different groups of people that I can send messages or photos to through WhatsApp, and I've had that for years. That includes members of my family, so we all can communicate with each other. You can do all of the things that I mentioned above: phoning, texting, emailing, WhatsApp, with Wi-Fi. So if you are traveling abroad and you have got your cellular data turned off because you don't want to use data while you're in the case that you don't want to use data while you're abroad, you can use all of those in Wi-Fi. I will show you a bit how you can get a SIM card, which will give you a lot more data to use when you're overseas, but we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, just remember your phone does all these forms of communication while you're traveling, and you can use it for all those things. Your phone is, again, for travel, your phone is a camera. And one of the nice things about having a phone as a camera is that at least my iPhone, and I'm pretty sure all Android phones do the same thing, they tell you the location and the time of where a photo was taken. So in 2018, I walked 500 miles across northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago. And I stopped and took pictures with my camera, but I also took pictures with my phone. And what was nice is my camera doesn't have GPS on it, but my phone, of course, does. And my phone knew where I was all the time, even with my cellular data turned off. The location feature on your phone is not attached to cellular. That is just a feature of being a mobile phone. So you could even have it in airplane mode, I believe, and your phone will still know where you are. That's very handy. As you'll see when we talk a little bit about Google Maps, you can do maps offline to know where you are when you're traveling, and you can use those maps even when you don't have cellular data, either because you choose not to or because you're in a place where there isn't good connectivity. Your phone, as a camera, also should have an editing function, and you can put attachments on it like zoom lenses. And Scott Sleek, our great Get Set Up guy, does classes on the attachments you can put on your phone. You can also save your screen if you have a web page or something like that you want to keep tabs on. You can do a screen save on that and then save that to your photos for a record if you need to. I'll be honest, the iPhone that I have, which is an SE 2020, so it's a little over a year old, relatively inexpensive as iPhones go, probably cost me $300 new, has a fabulous camera. And I took it about a month ago on a hike with my kids and grandkids that live in the area. And I also brought my camera along, and it took as good a pictures as my camera was taking. I mean, for simple pictures, it was very good. Great color, did great editing. So for most of your purposes, for many people that aren't necessarily a photographer or don't want to lug along an extra device, your iPhone should suffice as a camera. Your phone also does these different things. It navigates, so you can use it for navigation with Google Maps or Apple Maps. I don't use Apple Maps. I use Google Maps. It's an app on my iPhone. You can use it to do all sorts of trip planning. So I showed yesterday how to use mobile and online apps to plan your trip, like make reservations. And I do that a lot. And I have a whole travel folder of applications on my phone that has the Global Convert on it, Airbnb, Hopper, Booking.com. I went a little bit too fast. Let's back up a minute here. It has all those apps on it. And I find that very handy because a lot of those apps store your records of your reservations. So like if you have an Airbnb reservation, many times your host will communicate to you through the messaging function of Airbnb. So you can talk to your host, I'll be in town at 1 p.m. or when is check-in, and they say it's 2:30 or something like that. So you have information. Can I drop my bags off early? Very handy. So you can also use your phone to check recommendations. I often look at Yelp, which is an app that does all sorts of stuff for recommendations. I use it solely for looking for places to eat. I don't use the other functions it has. You can also use your phone as documentation storage. So when I travel, I get my boarding passes for a flight or my train ticket on my phone, saved in the wallet function on the iPhone. I'm hoping and imagining there's something similar on an Android. So I can just quick open that and it's got all those documents there. So that's one less thing I have to do is worry about where's my printed out train ticket or whatever. You can also use your iPhone to translate, which I love to do. If you've got a brochure and happens to be in German and you don't have Detlef along with you who can read German, you can just scan using Google Translate with your phone, hover it over the text you want to translate, and it will translate it from German to English. May not be the best translation, but hey, if you're just on a menu and you want to see that it says, whether or not it's got gluten in it or something, you can, it'll be very handy.
Actually, Google Translate is really good, I've found. Can I interrupt you, Russ?
Sure, yeah, I was just going to say, are there any questions so far? Please go ahead, Devin.
In the notes that I got from the class yesterday,
yes,
you mentioned, and you just now mentioned again, Apple Wallet. I don't have an iPhone. Is Apple Wallet something that only works on an iPhone? And what would you recommend the equivalent would be for an Android?
That is a good question. I need to find that out from our Android expert, Donna, what the Passport equivalent is. or the wallet equivalent is, because I don't actually know. And I'm going to write that down. And if there's someone else in the class that has an Android and can help, let me know. When
Yeah,
I
there's
get
Google Pay actually will like get boarding passes and stuff like that. And there's like third party apps and that you can get. So
there you go. Thank you, Bill. I was hoping someone would throw me a lifeline there on that one.
I haven't used any. I've used Google Pay, but I don't really travel. So, I'm just taking this class to learn if I, do. Yeah, that's my understanding. So, I mean, it seems like if you have an Android, Google, and you use Google Mail, or, the Google apps, it seems like Google kind of like fetches all that information and brings it to the surface for you. So, but
So
So
Google
what
Pay.
does Apple Wallet then actually do for you that you can store there? Because as Bill said, I've got all of the Google apps, and you can look at your email and stuff, and where you have copies of reservations and that type of thing. Does Apple Wallet do something other than that, or what is it?
I'll show you, Detlef. I'll show you. What it does is it kind of acts kind of like a wallet. It consolidates all those documents. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. And it's like, for example, when I'm on United Airlines and my boarding pass is on the app, so I can see it there. I can also just save it to my wallet. And what's handy about saving it to my wallet is that if I find myself, if I get into the airport, if I don't want to have my phone on cellular data or Wi-Fi for whatever reasons, and it's a fact that when you get in airport, there are airport Wi-Fi systems and they're terribly overloaded, so they don't work well. So you find yourself in cellular data, which might be just fine. Sometimes bigger documents don't pull up real fast. So saving it to your wallet, for example, pulls it up instantly. That's why I like to use it. And it keeps a lot of that data. I'll show you what the wallet looks like. It also has credit cards and other things in it. I have in the past had my medical card in it, my health insurance ID. So it's handy.
Can I ask a quick question about the translating?
Yes.
So, okay, so you pick up a brochure and it's in German.
Yes.
So you just hold it up to the iPhone, or do you have to be somewhere, or do you have to hold it in a certain program, or what do you do?
I'm going to demonstrate it for you, Sylvia.
Okay, thank
It's a
you.
good question because it's one of my favorite travel apps.
Thank you.
And this is kind of an hour where I try to show you a lot in a short amount of time, but that's the one I'm going to show you because it's one of the most interesting ones.
Thank you.
No, thanks for asking. Any more questions? Let me check and see if there are any questions in the chat.
I have one more thing to add to the
Sure, Bill.
person who asked about what's on Android. I'm looking at my Android right now. And if you go to the Google app, just open it up. There's a thing called Snapshot. And Snapshot, basically you can customize what you see in it. So it's that thing that brings all your information to the surface. So there's commute time, weather, events, reminders, bills, concert tickets, movie tickets, shopping lists, reservations. For travelers, car reservations, currency converters, language converter. There's a bunch of things that you can customize. So it seems to me
and it's called Snapshot, not Snapchat, like editing.
No. It's a function of the Google app, which is the big G on your phone. So if you open that, down at the bottom, you should see something called Snapshot. And that's basically kind of like your life, according to Google.
I like that, Bill. Your life according to Google.
Snapshot. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me stop this share here. And someone asked me what my iPhone is. It is the iPhone SE 2020. And it has pretty much the functions of the latest model of iPhone without some of the jazzy stuff like the camera. I mean, I have to admit the latest iPhone camera, iPhone 12, who knows? I have no idea what model it is really, really excellent. but this is better than the iPhone 6, which I had, which was a really good camera. So I'm really happy for most photography with the iPhone SE 2020, not to be confused with the SE they came out with about 2015, I think, which the idea of the SE is a slimmed down, slightly less expensive model of the current version. And what size is mine? Mine is the same size as an iPhone 6. So it's not the biggest phone. I want one that's no bigger than will fit in the shirt pocket. Let me grab one brochure and I'll demonstrate Google Translate here in a second. I'm going to stop the share of this screen and I'm going to pull up sharing my phone with you. Okay, my screen is now, you should see my screen there. And of course you can see maybe you can see my background with 1,000,001 stuff stuck all over the desktop. This is the actual screen of my phone right now. And there might've been somebody asking yesterday about how to make folders. And I generally have just 2 screens for my phone. Each has 20 apps or folders on it. So that's a total of 40. And because my little brain can't keep track of more than what's on 2 pages. But someone asked how to make folders, and the folders are an Apple is simply a combination of 2 apps. So I'm going to show you today how I do that. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to edit my phone screen. And you can see I've got a Walmart app right there. So I click on that. And it's now, if I hold it down long enough and that little minus sign comes up, that's my option to edit the phone screen. I can move apps around. So I'm going to take it from that screen. I'm going to pull it over here and I'm going to put it right in one called Shop because that's what it's for. And I'm going to drop it there. And then I'm going to turn off the editing by pressing my home button again. And now the Walmart app is in the Shop folder, and the Shop folder has all this stuff in it right there. And that's how you can do it. I've got another one here, Slides, Google Slides. That's what I was using before when you saw my program. I'm going to edit that one also. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to hold it down long enough until you can see the thing wiggling. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to pull it over here and I'm going to put it in one called, I don't know, I'll just put it in one called Lifestyle. I'll drop it in there. And there it is. And then I press my home button. So now I'm back to just 2 pages of apps. So that's good enough for me to see. Show you one real quick thing before I get to Google Translate about an app you can use for travel that you may have forgotten about, and that is your weather app. And Apple has a built-in weather app, looks blue in your screen. And if you go to the bottom right-hand corner of your app, down here where there's some little lines, you can press on that and it'll pull up a whole bunch of places you can save the weather for. And so my top one is my location. But actually this weekend I'm going to Ocean City. So I'm going to press on that and it shows me that Ocean City, Maryland is 72 degrees and cloudy there today. And I can scroll down here and it will show me that I'm going to be gone Friday through Wednesday. And so I can see the temperatures are going to be hovering around 80 with a low in 70. Why do we want to know that? Got to pack clothes. So just a handy thing. Don't forget to use to check the weather before you go somewhere. I've got all places all over the world like Santiago de Compostela in Spain. You can see what the weather's going to be like there the next week. Ooh, it's going to be chilly, 60 degrees. And if you're an American and you don't know what Celsius temperatures are, you can always change over to Celsius like that real quick. And now you're like the rest of the world, because if you travel to Germany where Detlef is, or Spain where I was just showing you, and there's a sign somewhere showing the temperature, it's not going to say it's 80 degrees when it's 80. That would be unbearably hot in Celsius. So anyway, that's just something to remember. Google Translate is an app right here on my phone, and I use Google Translate a lot. I'm often reading something and I come across a word in another language and I think, what does that mean? So I go into Google Translate and I just look it up, I type it in, and it tells you right here, this is the interface. You've got up here, the languages you're translating between. So if you want to type something in English and see what it says in German, you can do it right here. So if I want to know what the word house is in German, House, it says house, Haus down here in German. And if I press on that right there, it'll give me even, I can press down here below, it'll give me the German pronunciation of house. If I want to go the other way, if I see a German word and I want to know, and if you exit, click out of it, it'll keep track down below of all the translations you've done. So if you want to know what left is in German, it's links. And if you want to know what links is in German, it's left in English. Where is the bathroom? Dove è il bagno? That is Italian. That's one I saved from the past. I want to make sure I knew that when I went to Italy. Now, one of the neat things about this is you can also just switch it and you can go from German to English. Or if you press on German there, I've got all the different languages that I typically translate in and out of: Spanish, Italian, and French and German. Those are the ones I've been using lately. But those of you that were in Daniela's class last night on Bulgaria, maybe you want to know what something is in Bulgarian. I would add it right now, but the problem is that they also use a Cyrillic alphabet. So I'm not going to mix that up right now. You could hear it. This is a very handy app for translating. Now, someone was asking, how do you do it if you're in a menu or a brochure and you want to know what it is in English? Well, it just so happens that I've got here a brochure I picked up in Switzerland about 8 years ago, and it's Swiss German. So I'm going to press this little thing right here, the camera. Everybody see that little icon camera right here? And I press on that, and now it says aim at text. So I aim at the text right down here, and it says it's working on it. Let's see if I can do a better text down here. Well, we're not getting, there it is. It's trying to translate. And it is a church from 1907. Trying to get the right angle. Construction, a lot of it is the angle that you look at. Anyway, you can see every now and then it's kind of shifting in and out of the translation. And there you go, under a hipped gable roof. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time, but it's a very handy thing. It might be just the paper's getting a bit of reflection off of it because it's kind of a coated shiny paper. But you can use that. I've used it for a menu, again, for a brochure like this. You point it at it and you want to understand what the translation is from German to English, you can do that. You can also use it in a handy way if you want to say something to someone in another language. And I haven't done this, but other people have told me they've done it quite a bit. They've been somewhere and they want to say, like, you know, how do I order this? Or they want directions to something. They just say it in here, and then they ask it to translate it into that other language. And then sometimes they've just held it up to somebody and they've shown them the translation. They nod their head and they've said back the translation in their language, and then they've translated it back into English. You can actually have a very brief, simple conversation with someone using Google Translate if you're in a pinch. Now, I always say when you're going to go to another country, learn basic phrases. And I've got an app for that. I have, besides my travel apps, I have a whole folder of language apps right here. You see it says language right there, and you click on it, and these are all free apps which have various types of languages. So Paris is one. I think that's more about locations in Paris, but this is French Essentials. There's Rosetta Stone, which is many languages. There's Italian, and there's one right here that looks like it's in the cloud right now, but if I press it and it brings it down out of the cloud, it'll do German. And I've used that. So sometimes when I'm on the plane or days before, I start to practice my terms, and I always have the basic ones down: left, right, up, down, where is, please, thank you. Make sure you know all those things. People in other countries just appreciate it if you try. And I've studied a bit of German, a bit of Spanish, a bit of French. So as like I'd say, I know enough to be dangerous. But if you know this, the language apps are a very good thing. I mean, these are all free. You can buy some that cost. My wife uses Duolingo because she's pretty conversational in Spanish. Now,
You
I'll get
know,
into
people
Go ahead,
when
Della.
they use these translation things, they think they have to know where's the train station, where's the airport, that type of thing. I think the important ones are, you know, how much does that cost? Where is the bathroom? Thank you, please, and please speak slowly,
Yes,
or please repeat.
that's right. Please repeat, or I don't understand. Ich
Yeah.
verstehe nicht is the one I use in German.
Ja, ne понимаю.
I think French, I think, is lentement, which means slowly.
Slowly.
So these are all good things to know. You feel a little bit I mean, they realize you don't know the language, and you don't know that you don't know the language. But if you can say those basic things, my favorite one is like in Spanish was "Café con leche, por favor." So I always got to know how to ask for a cup of coffee. That'll wake your brain up to learn to speak the rest of the things you need to know. Let me just show you one more app. I want to get into this one right here where I have all my travel apps because I want to show you my favorite one called Convert. But I also use Google Maps for a lot of stuff. I use it all the time in the States, and I use it when I travel, and it locates you using cellular data where you are, and the map is pulled up by cellular data. But if you happen to not be in cellular data, you can save a map offline, and this will work for an Android phone or for an Apple phone because Google Maps is a Google app, and it's one of my favorite travel apps. And the key thing to know is that you can make offline apps by going into your account, who you are, and in the upper right hand corner where I'm circling, there's a little picture of me, and that's my Google account. And I click on that. By the way, Google accounts are free. So if you don't have a Gmail account, you can get one for nothing. And all of the Google apps will come with it that you can use, including this one, Google Maps. These are now some various settings, like turn on incognito mode, your profile, your timeline. The one I'm going to look at is down here called offline maps. So this is an important one to remember. Offline maps, click on that. And now you can create a map that you can keep on your phone when you're offline. And because your phone always locates you using the GPS signaling, you can be somewhere out of cellular range. And that happens. I've hiked through the mountains of Italy out of cellular range, and I can locate where I was because of the GPS signaling. You then click up here, select your own map, and it will default to whatever area you have chosen last on your map. So it's either where you are, or if you've been somewhere else and you want to save that map. So if I pinch that down, so I increase it, let's say I want to save this place in Maine that I'm going to go to up here in August. I click on that, and now I make it bigger. And this is actually where I'm going to go in August right there. And I find the area. It says downloads. Now look down here below. Downloads may take up to 15 megabytes of your free space. So just be aware of that. If your phone doesn't have a lot of space, just note that. And then you press on download, and I'm not going to do that because I don't want to tie up my phone downloading a map. And it will now, in Wi-Fi, download that map. And it will not only download it as the way it looks, but it will download all of the detail that Google Maps normally has. Okay, so whatever detail Google Maps has, it'll keep that. I'm going to cancel that. That is one of the niftiest features of Google Maps that people who travel can use. And if you're traveling, not to over a broad area, but maybe you're going in like when I was walking in Italy, I was going through the Umbrian region. I just downloaded different maps, and they were stitched together, kind of like a shoestring going up through the mountains. Very handy way. You don't have to use any cellular data. However, I do recommend, and I have some time at the end, I'll explain this. I do recommend when you travel abroad, you get a SIM card for that country. or you use eSIM capabilities on your phone. I still don't fully understand eSIM capabilities. I'm working on it. But that's another thing you can do so that you can get plenty of data while you're traveling, and phone calls and text messages. Any questions, more questions on Google Translate or Google Maps before I move on to something else? I'll check the chat here. How do you delete the downloaded maps? Good question. You'll see in here, wrong app. If you go into your Google Maps, so I go here and I go into my offline maps, see down here below, I have a couple of maps down here, map 12 and map 14, which by the way, you can name those. They're just, I think these are maps I probably downloaded for a class just for practice. And you can, over here, if you click on the little 3 buttons, you can delete them. So I can delete one right there. So now map 12 is gone. So that's not taking up any data on your phone. In fact, I'm going to get rid of map 14 because I really don't need it. And I can get rid of home. Well, home is not using any, that it's defaulting by calling this map that I could download home. So I hope that answered the question about how to delete them. They do time out over a year. They'll stay there for a year if you want it, but I find it handier just to delete them if I remember when I'm not using them. Saves a little space on your phone. Any more questions on Google Translate or Google Maps? Okay, I'm going to show you some handy dandy apps that I use for travel. And I've demonstrated some of these in other classes, so I'm not going to show you Airbnb because I have a whole class on Airbnb. But I will say that the Airbnb app is good, and it's a great way to communicate with a host if you are staying somewhere. And if you have data on your phone that you can be using in a cellular data mode, it's a great way to communicate with a host. One of my favorite apps, though, and those of you that use Android will have to tell me your equivalent of this, is one called Globe Convert. And again, if you're in America and you go out of the world, guess what? You are not in the English measurement system. You are in the metric system for everything, for temperature, for distances, for weights, everything, volumes is all going to be in the metric system. And actually, the metric system is a superior system. I like it. I've traveled enough over the years that I've learned the metric system, and my brain can do a handy convert. In fact, there's a lot of things in the US where now we do in the metric system. I don't buy pop, but they come in 2-liter bottles. I do know that a liter is about the size of a quart. But let's say you're traveling somewhere and you want to know the length, and you see that it says it is 51 kilometers. That's what you're seeing on my phone. You know that's about 31 miles. But let's say you say something is 5 kilometers. You know that's about 3 miles. That's about the pace that I can walk. I can walk almost 3 miles an hour, and that's about 5 kilometers. So when I was walking across Spain, if I saw a sign that said my destination was 15 kilometers ahead, I knew that was about 3 hours of walking. But Globe Convert has all sorts of capabilities. You can do lengths, you can do area, you can do currency. Currency is a very handy one. I'm going to show you some of the metric ones it can do, though. If you want to know volume, you go down here to volume right there. And let's say you see that someone is offering you a 500-liter bottle. You don't want to convert that to cups. Let's do liters to quarts. Well, that's not there, is it? Oh, here we go. Or we could do fluid ounces. 16 fluid ounces is about a pint. And so a half a liter is about a pint. And that's just a handy thing to know. You can, on the app down here at the bottom, they have favorites. So you can choose different types of conversions and you can save them as favorites. It's a faster way to get to it. Let's say you want to do weight. That's also one you'll see a lot when you travel. So I go into a delicatessen and I want to order something that's up on the counter. and it's priced by 100 grams. That's a very common thing all around the world. Such and such is weighed by the 100 grams. So what is 100 grams? Americans like, I haven't got a clue what 100 grams is. Well, put 100 grams into your converter and you'll see it's about a quarter pound. Oh yeah, I kind of know what a quarter pound is. Or you'll see something weighs 1 kilo, which is 1,000 grams. That's 2.2 pounds. I've learned all these conversions myself. So if I see something as a kilo, I know that's that's a little bit more than 2.2 pounds. If something is a half a kilo or 500 grams, that's about a pound. So you learn these things once and keep them in your head. But if you need to refresh your memory, the Global Convert app is just great. But that one about 100 grams is one that I finally just said, I see that everywhere. What is that? Put it in my convert. Oh yeah, that's about a quarter pound. Now I know what I'm buying. I also like it for currency right now. If you want to know what the euro is, 1 euro is $1.21. So if you're trying to figure out, should I buy that? Would I buy it? Maybe you want to get a souvenir, or you're seeing something in a store and you're thinking, that costs 5 euros. What would that be in dollars? That'd be about $6. Is it worth it? Maybe if you've seen something like that in the States. When I was in Germany, I bought back in 2014, I bought myself a couple pairs of Birkenstocks at the Birkenstock shop. And the Birkenstocks were 59 euro. Actually, I think they were 49 euros. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's worth it. $59. You can't touch a pair of Birkenstocks for $59 in the US. So I bought 2 pairs. Anyway, it's a handy way if you want to convert. Same thing. If you want to, I've also British pound to the US dollar. 1 British pound is $1.40. Ooh, the pound is slipping slightly. It was $1.41 last time I looked at this last week. But again, it gives you an idea of the relative price if you need to know that. Often when you're doing some of the travel planning that I show you, they give prices in US dollars. So it's not, you don't need to do the currency conversion. But when you're abroad, if you're looking at a candy bar in the store and you're thinking of buying that thing, it's cost 1 pound. What would that cost in the US? $1.40? It's a bargain. Chocolate's great overseas. So there's all sorts of things you can convert, all sorts of distances, volumes, weights. I use this a lot. Or if, let's say, I'm checking the weather and it says it's going to be, let's check the temperature down here. And you find out that it's going to be, the temperature today is going to be 22 Celsius. That's 71 Fahrenheit. Hey, that's really a nice temperature. And actually over the years, again, traveling, I've learned that 20, 21, 22 degrees, that feels really good. I know the 14's, getting down to 10, that's getting pretty chilly. And of course, 30, what's 30? 30 is really hot. That's 80, well, not too bad, 86. But I've known some people in Saudi Arabia and they told me that the temperature that day was 39. I said, ooh, that's hot. More questions about Convert app. It's a really handy app if you have an iPhone, but I don't know what a similar one is for Google. I'm sure Google's got to have one for Android phones.
I've even found that I can do conversion with, what is it? Anyway, I said, what's 20 degrees C in F? And
it tells you
Fahrenheit, for Celsius.
There you go. What's nice in the Global Convert, just to point out, is also it will keep track of those favorites that you use. So if you're doing weights a lot, you can choose a weight. So I can do weight. If I like to do grams to pounds, I can save that down here with a little heart thing there, add it to a favorite. Now it's on my list of favorites down there if I want to do quick convert somewhere. Again, you learn these things. Yes, go ahead, Detlef.
The other day I wanted to buy some cheese. How much do you want? Said 100 grams. Said, oh, about 5 slices, 6 slices. So
that's right. And you learn a lot of common things. For example, in Europe, a bottle of beer is generally half a liter, 500. But then when the smaller bottles that are similar in size to the 12-ounce bottle, I think that's at 300.
Yeah, 0.33 liters.
0.33 liters or 330 milliliters. So you learn that stuff. The sizes look the same. And actually, more and more that's happening in the US. And honestly, when I look at stuff in the US for sale, whether it's a bottle of something or something a weight, I also nowadays just look at the grams and the liters, just to train my brain to see and know what that is in another country. So let me go back to some other travel apps. Now, here's one that I use a lot. By the way, you can see here I've got Amtrak, Delta, and Southwest all have handy little apps so you can get your information for travel, your boarding pass, your reservations. You can even make a reservation. I find them fairly clunky in terms of making a reservation. I can do it faster on my laptop, but I'm going to the ocean this weekend. Do you know there's a Tide app? This one called Tides Near Me. And I'm going to be going to Assateague Beach, which is Assateague Island. So I'm curious right now. It's going to be high tide there at 12:22, which is in about a half an hour. So what's nice is it gives you some other information too, the sunset, moonset. And this is really handy. You can, if you are in a location that you're near the ocean, and you don't have that location in your phone, it will automatically use GPS to figure out where you are and tell you what the tides are. So I really like that app on my phone when I'm traveling, one that we may not think that we have. There's also, and I'll show you this one later if you come back for the class on how to save travel, on travel as a senior. There's National Park Service in the US has an app. I think it's pretty cool. You can explore all the places and parks in the US from your phone. But one I use a lot for planning travel, and I mentioned it briefly yesterday in our planning class, is Hopper. And this is my favorite one for flights. And I like it because not only will it tell you what something's going to cost today on a flight, but it'll also tell you whether you could get something or not. So last night in our class with Daniela about going to Bulgaria, I, for fun, put in August 26th to September 9th to Sofia, that is the capital of Bulgaria, and there's that flight. And now Hopper Bunny is going to hop around. He's going to go check. He's going to fetch the latest price for me. Sometimes we have to sit and wait for him to hop a bit. But it'll tell you what the price is for that flight today. And if you want to follow it, it'll tell you whether or not to get it. So look at that. Hopper says you should book now. Hopper hasn't seen a price this low for the past 6 months. So I'm watching it down here. You can see this little thing right here says I'm watching it because I asked to watch it. And you can also with Hopper put in a freeze for 12 days for $44 deposit. It'll freeze that price for you. And if you're curious what you're going to fly on for $520 per traveler, you can click on it. And there, to my great shock, is a flight with United Airlines, because I didn't think United was doing that well for a flight. $520, you can get an 11-hour, 55-minute flight. There are no direct flights from Washington to Sofia. And if you click on that, it'll tell you what it is. It's going to be Washington to Munich or München. And it's going to leave at 5:30 p.m. and get in at 7:35 a.m. Down below, it says it's got a 2-hour layover in Munich. And then you're going to pick up a Lufthansa flight and you're going to fly to Sofia. And that's going to take about 3 more hours. So what's nice is Hopper will keep track of this for me. I can even do something where I can tell Hopper, I'm thinking about this flight. And if it gets below a certain amount, please alert me. And it'll give you an alert. It will also just tell me, like today, Hopper might say, guess what? You're not going to find that price any lower than that. Go ahead and buy it now. Here is a price prediction until June 25th. It says prices will vary over the next 10 days, but it will likely cost you $67 or more to wait. And then it tells you how much they're going to rise. Hopper they have a different way of looking at things. They look at how the airlines select prices on tickets, and it looks at how people search, and somehow it's got an algorithm that figures out the relationship between airline prices going up and down and searches and days of the week and so on and so forth. And they're pretty good. Are they perfect? No. I've had Hopper tell me, go ahead and wait. I think the price is going to get less on that flight, and it didn't. So it's not perfect. And they tell you they're not perfect, but it's a great little app to put on your phone. I'm pretty sure it works for Android as well as Apple. And by the way, it's free, and there is no equivalent website on a laptop. It's only an app for your phone. Well, we're about out of time. I've covered lots of apps for travel. I haven't mentioned using a SIM card. I'm probably going to do a whole class on how to get a SIM card for your phone when you're traveling to different countries. I did it when I went to Italy almost 2 years ago. And for about $40, I got a SIM card in my phone, had an Italian phone number, and had a gazillion texts and phone messages. The best thing was I had 15 gigabytes of data. So I didn't have to worry about how much data I was using on my phone. Heck, I can't use 15 gigabytes on my cellular data at home. So I figured I'd be pretty good covered in Europe. And yeah, someone's asking about SIM cards. Yes, I am going to try to find out more information. What I'd like to know about SIM cards is this thing called eSIMs, and I don't fully understand it. Some other learners have showed me about it. Pat says, I've noticed you use Verizon. Do you ever use the travel pass for T-Mobile? It's called International Pass. Yes, I have. There's a Verizon equivalent when you go to Canada or Mexico. I think you pay $2 a day to just continue the same service. I find that worth it. Been in Canada as long as a week. $14 a day a week was a bargain.
I think last year to Canada and Mexico, they dropped it to $0 depending upon your plan. For a lot of the other countries, international countries, it's $10 a day.
Yeah, I don't find it worthwhile to use it overseas, and I have had international plans. They're about $40 with Verizon. I haven't found those worthwhile now that I have found out about using a SIM card. I get a SIM card as soon as I get to the country at a cellular store, and I'm good to go. And I have the people there insert it and do all the settings for me. Nifa asked, does the price freeze actually freeze on the airlines? The answer is no. It's frozen for you on a Hopper, and Hopper will make the reservation. And if the price has gone up, they'll eat the difference. Anyway, I didn't see Nifia's left the class, so sure I didn't get her question answered.
I'm here.
Nifia, you're still here. Okay, very good. Yes, so you have to reserve it through Hopper. They don't reserve it for you out at the airline. And I usually make my reservations on the airline site if it's one where I have frequent flyer miles.
But you have to pay for that, freeze it.
You have to pay for it through Hopper and then reserve it through Hopper. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question about the SIM card? So when you go overseas, you go over to a kiosk and they put it in for you, right? This new SIM card. Aren't you a little bit nervous about losing your original one?
Well, I would be, except for that I have these little tiny Ziploc baggies that I put mine in with the information, and I put that in the most secure place I have all my belongings, like the cards and things that I'm not going to lose, and it's there.
Okay.
So I haven't lost my SIM card. Good question, though, because I thought about that. I thought, well, how am I going to keep track of the SIM card? Well, I put it in with some things that I knew I was going to keep track of for the whole trip, like a little Ziploc envelope that had documents in it.
Right. So what do? When you come home, do you go to a Verizon store and have them put them back in for you?
Actually, I asked them to give me at the store the little pricking thing that you use to get the little slide out, and I just did it when I got back in the plane. And I paid close attention to the different settings they changed on my phone. They showed me that, so I knew how to change it back.
Okay, that's good.
You know, another thing you can do too. I bought a phone that uses 2 SIM cards. That way, when I come back to the States, I order a U.S. SIM card on Amazon. It's delivered to my friend where I stay, and I keep my SIM card in here, and then put the U.S. SIM card in there that I'm going to use for 30 days. And then when I dial something, I can choose SIM card 1 or SIM card 2, because my other one SIM card will work when I've got Wi-Fi. The only reason I really need another US SIM card is when I'm traveling, outside of a Wi-Fi area.
Right. And
And I just stick it in myself.
the latest iPhones, and I don't know about Android, so I beg your pardon for knowing, but I know the latest iPhones have what's called eSIM capability, where they have the equivalent of another SIM card built into the phone. And you can actually get that second phone number while you're in the States. And that's what I've been trying to research, is how to do that and set it up so that you have a second phone number that works when you're overseas, and then you buy sort of the equivalent of the data plan that you're going to need in that country. You can also buy SIM cards overseas that, and I'm speaking of Europe here, which go for different European countries. So people have asked, do you need one for each country? And the answer is, well, you can get one for that country. But if you know you're going to be traveling between different countries, what you can do is you can get a SIM card that will work across all those different countries. You might spend a little bit more, but you only need one SIM card for all those different countries.
The thing is that with that SIM card too, a lot of them work anywhere in the European Union. So it doesn't make any difference whether I'm in Germany or I'm in Italy or I'm in Portugal. I can dial direct, and it doesn't charge me overseas rates or out of country rates.
Yep. And I have heard about the twin SIM card slots like you have on your phone on phone. So those are all.
It's a regular phone. It's a Samsung.
Yep.
Nothing special.
One more thing you can do if you wanted to, I've got an old iPhone 6. I could just take that along, put a SIM card overseas in that, and make that my overseas phone if I wanted to. Again, I'm not sure I would want to do that if I can just go ahead and make this one my phone. But all these are possibilities. I'll research that, and we will do a class, either me or someone else that gets set up on how to use a SIM card when you travel abroad. So it's a real money saver, but in many ways, not just money saver, it's a real anxiety and worry saver, because you've got all that data you can use. Like I said, I was in Italy for 2 weeks. I probably used 3 or 4 gigs of data at the most. I'm not sure I haven't used that much. And I had 15 for $40. So, and yeah, Nifia says we should do a class on SIM cards. I think we will. Well,
So, Russ,
yes.
Can I ask a question? So if once that data, should it ever run out, you need to take and top it off, but the instructions would be in that language of where you're at, correct? So if you don't speak the language, that might be problematic.
That would be problematic. I would say it's so cheap to get the data. Like I was looking at something recently, you could get 3 gigs of data for $12 with a SIM card. And the other one was for like $20, you could get 15 gigs of data. I'm like, well, why not just spend an extra few dollars and get 15 gigs, which is more than I'm ever going to use. I mean, we used to have a family plan with 7 of us, and we strained to use 10 or 15 gigs of data in the olden days. Now we use a lot more data because we have a unlimited data plan. Well, why not? But I would say just for spring for a few extra dollars and get more than you'll need, and otherwise top off early. You can go into a store and get it topped off for you. And the European cellular stores, mobile stores, pretty much always have someone who speaks English. It is kind of the international language, for better or for worse, when you're in a lot of places. I'm not advocating it. I think we should learn other languages, but I haven't been in a store yet where somebody didn't know English. I would think that would certainly be a requirement to work in a mobile phone store abroad, where you have lots of tourists coming in to speak other than just the language of that country. Well, listen, this has been a great class. We've actually went a little bit over. I always enjoy it a lot, and it's hard to break away from this class and go on to other things. I really appreciate having all of you here, and I hope you learned something. And if you didn't learn enough, come back next week. We'll do it again, or probably 2 weeks. We'll do it again. You can take these classes over and over again. Continue to ask questions. I love it when you give me feedback. You get an email where you get information that I shared with you today. There's also requests for feedback. So give me feedback. Let me know how to make the class better or how to teach better. I always appreciate that. Hope to see you in more classes today at 3:30. This is especially for Americans, ways to save on money as seniors traveling, especially in the US. And 7 o'clock, we'll have our single and solo class. And Detlef, we will be doing that in the afternoons in a couple of weeks. So you have a chance to join. as well as the Romania class. After the Romania class last night, there were all these people saying, I got to go to Romania. So anyway, and I asked about the islands, the lakes, the lake. And I think they said
Right.
it's a whole bunch of lakes. There's like 7
Yeah.
lakes. And she goes, oh yes, that's where they all like to come. So if you search in about Bulgaria on Google, it's one of the first things that comes up are those lakes. So thanks for being here, everybody. Have a
Good.
good afternoon. See you another time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.